Picture a room somewhere deep in central Mexico 500 years ago. A Spanish priest is writing in a ledger. Outside, soldiers are setting fire to the fields, not to starve an enemy army, not to destroy weapons, but to burn a grain small enough to fit 1,000 seeds on the tip of your finger. They were terrified of it. And what I'm about to tell you explains exactly why. Before you keep watching, I want to ask you something. Have you ever heard of this plant before today? Let me know in the comments. Because most people in the modern world have not. And by the end of this video, that silence will feel very strange to you. Walk into any health food store right now. You will pass shelves lined with protein powders, whey blends, amino acid capsules, and plant-based supplements, each one promising that your body will get everything it needs to rebuild muscle, fight inflammation, and stay strong. You might spend $60, $70, even $90 a month on these products. Now consider this. There is a grain, not an extract, not a processed compound, not a pharmaceutical formulation, a grain with seeds the size of a poppy seed that contains all 9 essential amino acids your body cannot produce on its own. A grain whose protein digestibility score rivals that of dairy. A grain that grows on your windowsill in a shallow tray with nothing but water, a grain that takes 5 minutes to set up and begins feeding you within days, and the civilization that built one of the most advanced empires on Earth ate it every single day for over 1,000 years. Its name is Amaranth. You need to understand what that name means before we go any further. The word comes from ancient Greek amarantinos, meaning the unfading one. It was given this name because when the flower dries, it does not lose its color. It does not wilt or decay the way everything else does. It holds its form, its brilliance, its structure, long after all the other flowers have turned to dust. That name was chosen carefully because the plant itself behaves exactly the same way. Amaranth was domesticated around 6,000 years before the modern era in the river valleys of South and Central America. By the time the Aztec Empire reached its height, this grain had already been feeding human beings for longer than most civilizations have existed. The Aztecs did not merely grow it, they built their empire on it. 20,000 tons of amaranth poured into Tenochtitlan every single year, carried by foot from 17 separate provinces across the empire. It was stored in massive granaries and distributed as both food and ceremonial offering. Aztec warriors carried it on long campaigns. Runners relied on it for sustained energy across mountain terrain. It was woven into festivals, into rituals, into the fabric of daily survival. And Aztec priests gave it a name that translated roughly into this: the food that does not let you die. Now here is where the story takes a turn that should make you deeply uncomfortable. When the Spanish conquistadors arrived in 1519, they did not just encounter an empire. They encountered a food system that was completely self-sufficient, disease-resistant, and impossible to control. And they understood something that many modern people have forgotten. Whoever controls what a population eats, controls the population itself. By 1521, the colonial authorities had issued a formal ban on amaranth cultivation. The punishment for growing it was to have your hands severed. Soldiers burned more than 10,000 hectares of amaranth fields across Mexico's central valleys. Priests destroyed the temples where amaranth ceremonies were held. The grain was erased from markets, from trade routes, from the written record. It was not banned because it was dangerous. It was banned because it was powerful. Amaranth survived only because farmers in remote mountain villages above 2,500 meters continued growing it in hidden plots no larger than a single room, small enough to go undetected generation after generation. Seeds passed from hand to hand, not through commerce or institutions, but through the quiet stubbornness of people who refused to let something irreplaceable disappear. For nearly 300 years, this grain waited. In 1975, the United States National Academy of Sciences published a report that changed the conversation. Researchers identified amaranth as one of the most promising crops on Earth, noting its extraordinary protein profile, its resilience in harsh climates, and its potential to address food insecurity on a global scale. The report documented seeds containing up to 17% protein, higher than most conventional grains, and an oil content rich in a compound called squalene. That molecule is so rare and so biologically active that pharmaceutical companies currently pay $400 per kilogram to extract it. 2 years later, NASA tested Amaranth in controlled environments designed to simulate growing conditions on Mars. The result was that Amaranth produced 20% more biomass than wheat under the same conditions. Let that sit for a moment. A grain that ancient farmers grew in mountain hideaways to avoid colonial soldiers is the same grain that modern space researchers selected for survival beyond Earth. Now let us talk about what is actually inside this seed. Amaranth grain is classified as a complete protein. That distinction is rare in the plant kingdom. Most plant proteins are incomplete, meaning they're missing one or more of the 9 essential amino acids your body requires for basic function, such as tissue repair, immune response, enzyme production, and hormone regulation. Wheat lacks lysine, rice is deficient in threonine, corn falls short on tryptophan and lysine. Amaranth contains all 9. Lysine, the amino acid most grains fail to deliver, appears in amaranth at concentrations more than double what you find in wheat. This matters because lysine is not optional. Your body uses it to absorb calcium, produce collagen, repair muscle after physical stress, and support immune function. Without it, the other proteins you consume cannot be fully utilized. Published studies on amaranth's protein digestibility give it a score that approaches dairy. Not comparable to most plants, comparable to milk from a seed. Beyond protein, amaranth leaves contain more iron per serving than spinach. The grain itself carries meaningful levels of magnesium, phosphorus, and manganese. And that squalene compound found in amaranth oil, the same one pharmaceutical companies extract at extraordinary cost, has been linked in peer-reviewed research to reduced LDL cholesterol, lower blood pressure, and measurable anti-inflammatory effects. Researchers studying amaranth's antioxidant properties found that squalene in this grain occurs at concentrations 8 times higher than in olive oil. Olive oil, the same oil marketed for centuries as the gold standard of heart health. Here is something else almost nobody tells you. When amaranth seeds sprout when you introduce them to water and give them 48 to 72 hours, the germination process chemically transforms what is already inside them. Enzymes that were dormant become active. Anti-nutritional compounds that could block mineral absorption break down. Protein bioavailability increases. The seed essentially unlocks itself. What you are eating when you consume amaranth microgreens is not just a plant. It is a plant in the process of becoming its most nutritionally powerful version of itself. And you can grow this on a windowsill, without soil, without fertilizer, without any equipment that costs more than $1. Here is exactly how to do it. First, take 1 tablespoon of dry amaranth seeds and place them in a small glass or bowl. Cover them completely with clean, cool water. That is all. No soil, no trays, no special lighting yet. Let them soak for 8 hours. Second, after 8 hours, drain the water through a fine mesh strainer or a piece of clean cloth. The seeds are tiny, so take your time. Rinse them once with fresh water and drain again completely. Third, spread the drained seeds in a thin, even layer across a shallow tray or plate. A dinner plate works. A baking dish works. You want the seeds in a single layer, not piled. Add just enough water to cover the bottom of the tray by a few millimeters. Barely a film of moisture beneath the seeds. Fourth, set the tray on a windowsill where it receives indirect light. Amaranth microgreens do not need direct sun, a north-facing window, a spot near a glass door, a kitchen ledge. Any of these will do. Fifth, rinse and drain the seeds gently once in the morning and once in the evening. This keeps them moist without drowning them. The entire process takes under 2 minutes each time. Sixth, on the second day, look closely. You will see the first white root threads emerging from the seeds, thin as hair, reaching down toward the moisture. This is germination beginning. 7th, by day 3, the first pale shoots will appear, standing upright. By day 4, the first leaves called cotyledons will open. They will be small and green, sometimes edged in deep red or magenta depending on the variety. 8th, by day 5 to 7, your amaranth microgreens are ready to harvest. Use clean scissors, cut just above the seed layer. Rinse the greens once more and use them immediately in a salad, on top of eggs, folded into flatbread, or eaten directly from the tray. The total active time across all 7 days is less than 30 minutes. Now let us do the math. 1 tablespoon of dry amaranth seeds, roughly 7 grams, will yield approximately 80 to 100 grams of fresh microgreens. Those microgreens contain concentrated protein, all 9 essential amino acids, iron, lysine, magnesium, and squalene. A 100-gram bag of amaranth seeds costs less than $3 in most markets and contains enough seeds for 14 to 16 growing cycles. 14 growing cycles from $3. If you run 2 trays side by side, you create a continuous harvest cycle, 1 tray always at peak growth while the other is just beginning. Over the course of a month, 2 trays give you roughly 800 grams to 1 kilogram of fresh microgreens. Over 12 months, that is 10 to 12 kilograms of complete protein food grown on a windowsill for the cost of a single coffee. No land, no greenhouse, no growing season, no supply chain. Think about what that actually represents. For most of human history, getting complete protein required animals. Animals required land, water, time, and infrastructure. The protein supply chain we have built around that reality employs millions of people, generates trillions in revenue, and depends entirely on you never knowing that a small seed, a shallow tray, and a cup of water can bypass the entire thing. The 1975 National Academy of Sciences report called Amaranth one of the most promising crops on Earth. That was 50 years ago. In 50 years, it has not appeared in mainstream supermarkets as a staple. It has not replaced wheat in bread. It has not become the default protein source for schools or hospitals or emergency food programs. Ask yourself why. Seeds do not understand markets. They do not understand profit margins or supply chain agreements or the economics of commodity grain trading. They understand water, warmth, and time. They have understood those things for 6,000 years. The conquistadors burned the fields. The colonial ledgers erased the name. 300 years of suppression nearly worked. But the seeds survived in the hands of mountain farmers who understood something that institutions never will, that the most powerful thing a human being can hold is the knowledge of how to feed themselves without asking anyone's permission. What happened to Amaranth is not ancient history, it is a pattern. Every generation produces a version of the same suppression, a profitable product replacing a free one, a complex system standing where a simple one once existed, a population that has forgotten what their great-grandparents grew without thinking twice. But here is what the conquistadors never accounted for. The seeds outlasted the soldiers. The knowledge outlasted the ban. And the windowsill you have right now is exactly as powerful as any mountain plot in Oaxaca in 1540. You do not need permission to grow this. You do not need land, equipment, or expertise. You need a shallow tray, a tablespoon of seeds, and the 5 minutes it takes to rinse them. The Aztecs called it the food that does not let you die. 500 years of effort went into making sure you would never hear that name. Now you have heard it. What happens next is entirely up to you. If this landed with you, share it with one person who would never expect to grow their own protein on a kitchen shelf. Drop a comment to say whether you have ever seen amaranth in the wild or eaten it without knowing what it was. And if you grow a tray after watching this, come back and tell me what happened on day 7. I will be here